Indonesia is grappling with a growing refugee burden since an Australian policy change last year. More than 5,000 people aren't receiving any support and are struggling to survive in a country where they're not allowed to work, study or to open a bank account. Some of them are living on the street. Indonesia correspondent Ann Barker reports from Jakarta.
Only weeks ago, this footpath was home for Parisa Mohammadi, at night sleeping rough and by day wondering how she'd eat.
We don't have any other place to stay.
The 13-year-old and her parents are Afghan refugees who fled to Indonesia hoping to be settled in Australia or a third country. With no right to work, they joined hundreds of asylum seekers in West Jakarta, hoping to be locked up in the detention centre across the road, where they'd at least have food and a bed.
Because in the street, every people get sick.
But detention is no longer an option since Australia last year cut funding to the UN Migration Agency to provide support for those inside. Anyone registering with the UN since March last year no longer gets any support.
So the people who are arriving after that date are completely destitute.
Mohammed Ibrahim is just as desperate to keep his family off the street. There isn't a toilet, so he takes the boys to a public washroom blocks away.
The UN revealed last year as few as 1% of refugees here would be resettled in a third country. The rest face years in limbo without the right to work or study.
They said maybe you will stay in Indonesia for 25 years without working.
In desperation, asylum seekers recently moved to the UN building in central Jakarta, but the UN could do nothing and local authorities sent buses to remove them. 1,200 asylum seekers are now here in an abandoned army building. Conditions are better, but authorities say it's temporary. They could soon be back on the street. Refugee advocates say the only solution is for Indonesia to allow them to work. But in a country of 265 million facing their own struggles, that's unlikely to happen. Ann Barker, ABC News, Jakarta.